suffer from the bull moose syndrome. That is to say, if it's good for General Bull Moose, it's good for the country.
The general once had a plan to dam the reversing falls, St. John's biggest tourist attraction, to generate hydropower and allow tankers to enter the dangerously tidal harbor. But public reaction to the scheme was never tested, since it was dropped as being too costly.
This culture is very deferential, so that the mass of the citizens or the residents of this province defer to authority, defer to power. So they're going to defer to the most powerful, which in New Brunswick today is the Irving family.
If the Irvings can work their will so freely in New Brunswick, it is because the people want them to succeed, a fact that is not lost on those who sit in the New Brunswick legislature.
And when you have men willing to do the job, such as we have all over the province, I can assure you that the job will be done.
Louis Robichaud was the first politician to challenge the tax concessions granted years earlier to the Irving companies. Mr. Irving was not amused.
It's hardly consistent that he would refuse practically or would avoid paying taxes here, which are for the benefit of all of us, just as he avoided paying taxes on the dry dock and various other enterprises here, and at the same time be considered as being a great lover of this province and doing it all for us, you know. I just don't think he did it all for us. He did it all for Irving.
Oh, well, of course, money is a necessity, but outside of taking care of your needs and that, it's only good for what you can do with it.
Late into the night, a meeting is still going on at the Golden Ball building. The pressures of the father's legacy are enormous. For the Irving watcher, the hours are equally long, but the task is next to impossible. Using scraps of information gleaned from court records and registry office documents, Peter Glennie has compiled a chart of Irving companies. Because they have no public shareholders, the Irving companies release only the legal minimum of information regarding their activities. In short, practically nothing. But Glennie has discovered a complex web of more than 200 companies worth nearly $7 billion. They're organized to support one another with goods and services. It's called vertical integration. What it means is the Irvings are often their own best customers. The tires on this truck come from Maritime Tire, an Irving company. Newly built ships are outfitted by Chandler Sales. And if a crane is required, it comes from J.D. Irving Equipment. Security is handled by Industrial Security, reputed to be the third largest police force in New Brunswick. And if you follow the thread that ties all these companies together, it leads to an island in the Atlantic Ocean. It's called Bermuda, and several Irving holding companies live here, free from Canadian taxes on their corporate profits. Any zealous tax official will point to the tremendous losses this may cause the Canadian nation. An equally zealous New Brunswicker might point out that the tax-free Irving dollars have most often returned to the home province in the form of more industries and more jobs. And of course, more growth for the Irving empire.
How big do you think he is, do you know? Do you have any idea, people, how big he is?
No, but I think I knew it would scare me.
Oh, I think he has problems like everybody else. When they get when they get one thing, they want to own something else and something else and something else. But on the whole, I think he's a good man.
Yeah.
I own a small business, and I would be willing to bet that I probably pay more tax in my business than Mr. Irving does, for instance, for his shipping business.
I've always said, let me live around where there's lots of millionaires, and it won't be too long till I have some of it. We're in business, and we get work from Irving Oil, we get work from the other people, but the more millionaires around, the better.
Have I ever met Casey Irving? Hell no. Jesus. I just don't travel in them circles. Yeah. He don't travel in my circles, you know?
Well, I understand you're doing a grand job, and had a record week last week.
That's right.
Good. Splendid.
Bridgery going well? Well, I think it is. My opinion, it's a showcase for the industry.
Good. Fine. That's great. How do you do?
Richard Waters?
How do you do, Mr. Waters?
The Irvings run a family business, but about 1/3 of their 25,000 employees are unionized, in spite of the Irvings' long history of frustrating the efforts of union organizers.
The trade union movement dealing with the Irvings is fighting for its rights to exist. Every battle is an existence battle. And when we get past that point, maybe there can be some more productive things done.
The Irving refinery began operations in 1960 using untrained local workers. Irving's plan was to increase their wages gradually to national levels. But in 1963, they went on strike for wage parity. An angry Casey Irving went on his own radio station to denounce the new leaders of the union.
These people have shown no regard for the economics involved in this dispute. They are interested in implementing their international policy regardless of the consequences. But none of these same people ever actually started a business. None of them has ever experienced the problems of trying to create jobs for thousands of workers. They only become experts after the industry has been established. Then these experts show up. They tell you, among many things, how the work should be done and who should do it.
After 6 months, the workers returned to their jobs. They had settled for Irving's original offer. The refinery, run by management personnel, had not lost a single day's production. The RST truckers are a classic example of Irving's ability to outmaneuver union organizers. In the late 70s, when a union tried to recruit the drivers, the Irvings immediately reformed the company as a leasing operation, whereby the company owns only the trailer and leases the rig that hauls it from the driver. These owner-operators willingly work up to 70 hours a week and make more money than union drivers. Needless to say, the Irvings do too.
What do they think of the Irvings? You know, I suppose that a lot of people there were a source of conversation. You know, we really don't mind. We do the best we can, and if they don't like it, that's tough, you know. But I think that we try to be good people.
The Empire loyalists in their graves would applaud the upright morality that still lives behind the walls of the Golden Ball building.
I do the best job I can and try to do things right. And after that, there's not much more you can do.
When the Empire does strike back, it's usually in the courts, and it's usually a long, hard battle. The case of a man whose foot was run over by an Irving bus and who eventually won an $8,000 insurance settlement is described by Peter Glennie.
However, in the case in question, the bus company put in a statement of defense to the effect that he should have stepped back when the bus came up over the curb because of the fact that the bus had been doing that for years and years, and it was a known fact. And that sort of thing would, in most cases, terrify or at least discourage the average citizen from litigating against the Irving Empire.
Since I left Canada some time ago to reside in Bermuda, I have been summoned back on a number of occasions to be honored in one way or another. Invariably, someone recites the nice things I have done, or the nice things I now am alleged to have done, and very kindly omits all the terrible things I used to be accused of doing. I must confess, I like it much better this way. And if I had realized what a fine fellow I would become simply by growing old, I might well have done it much sooner. Anything I have achieved is due not particularly to my own efforts, but to those of the fine men and women who my sons and I have gathered around us. With them, I share the great honor you have done me.
In 1979, in Toronto, K.C. Irving, along with the late Donald Smith, founder of the Canadian Pacific Railway, was inducted into the Canadian Business Hall of Fame. Uncomfortable in the spotlight, K.C. Irving has always preferred to live and work far away from public scrutiny. Including son Jim and grandson Jim Jr., 3 generations of Irvings have run J.D. Irving Woodlands Division, which owns or leases 2.3 million acres of forest land. Quite literally, as far as the eye can see. This machine can cut 100 trees an hour. There are lots more like it feeding the 8 Irving sawmills. Irving lumber is sold all over the world, but for some reason, it is most popular in Ireland.
92,000 last night. What'd you get in the day shift yesterday?
We had 90, Mr. Irving. 90 in the day shift yesterday.
Oh, that's great, John Paul. Yeah, well, that's good then, Jim. So we're gonna watch the costs, eh?
Like a hawk. Yeah, yeah. no mercy.
Yeah, well,
no mercy.
You got the knife out.
You got the knife out.
Boys?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I'm going to take this map with me, eh? And I'll be in the office, and we'll see you after lunch.
Good.
Okay?
Good.
Cutting costs led K.C. Irving to practice recycling long before it became fashionable. Wood chips from the Irving sawmills all over the province are trucked into St. John to make pulp. Bark from the logs fires the boilers.
When does the smell come up, George? What are you doing to make that awful odor that comes up?
If you're down there in that, where that smoke is going, you get it. It's like dirty socks, only worse.
The only thing I wish he would do would get rid of the smell from the pulp mill.
Yeah.
That's rank. You know, that gets in the car and it takes you a good 15, 20 minutes to get it out on the way by.
Well, pulp mill and odor. Well, I got 2 daughters at home. Remind me about the same thing every once in a while. So I guess it's a problem that's around. But our mill was on the outskirts of St. John at one time. The city's built up around it, and it's a little difficult, all right.
Over the years, there have been many demonstrations against the pollution from the mill. This one was in 1970. Since then, provincial legislation has finally forced the Irvings to install pollution control equipment.
Our mill here, compared to other craft mills that I know of, I think we've got one of the best as far as odor goes. There's no question about that. And we're very conscious of it, and we watch it very closely. Well, right now, we're putting in a scrubber at the mill. It's costing about $10 million. It's the latest technology available, and when we get that installed sometime in the fall of '81, that's about all that can be done to eliminate the odor.
One place you won't find a lot of criticism of the Irvings is in the Evening Times Globe, on the streets in time for the 5 o'clock shift change at the shipyard.
Let's see if we can get a local peg on the thing, see if our own shipyard is part of that. We talked to MacArthur.
One issue which really brings their critics' blood to a boil is the Irving's monopoly of the English language press in New Brunswick. All 5 dailies belong to the Irving Group. Of prime concern is the coverage, or lack of coverage, accorded to issues which involve the Irving interests. And in New Brunswick, almost every issue involves the Irvings.
The man everybody loves to hate.
The papers serve up a high percentage of world and national news from the wire services. Irving stories are usually given perfunctory treatment on the inside or back pages. Investigative reporting is virtually unknown.
They're not big newspapers, but they're as good as any small newspapers across Canada, and they're run by competent management, and they run it, and they have the full say in how the paper is published, and I guess the public pretty well know that.
But I've never yet seen criticism of any Irving enterprise in the news or in the editorial comment of any newspaper.
What we need more industries, quite frankly. And that's the big push. We have to do more in developing our industries. So if you ask, do we go out and attack industries? Frankly, no. We would welcome more and more industries.
I think if they're really concerned about the image that comes to them as a result of their newspaper ownership, what they really ought to do is take one of those papers and just make it a super paper, make it a great newspaper. And one can certainly say that they have the wherewithal, they have the corporate ability to do that.
The Irvings also own CHSJ-TV, the largest station in New Brunswick.
CHSJ, the New Brunswick television system.
It is a CBC affiliate, but CBC has no control over what programs it carries. CHSJ did telecast CBC's coverage of the 1980 constitutional talks. But in the middle of Premier Hatfield of New Brunswick's speech, they preempted him for Woody Woodpecker.
The weatherman says showers, chance of a thunder shower ending this morning, clearing a little later on this afternoon, tomorrow mostly sunny.
It's 8:10. CHSJ, St. John.
CHSJ Radio shares facilities with the TV station.
No way. I've never been instructed one way or the other what I can or can't say about the radio station. I used to joke in the air the other morning about the newspaper, which is also owned by the group, and I said that the newspaper was so boring my dog fell asleep carrying it in the other morning.
In 1970, the Davie Commission investigated the Irving press monopoly. Eventually, Irving was prosecuted under the Combines Investigation Act, but the Supreme Court dismissed the charges. This judgment has rendered Canadian monopoly laws virtually useless ever since.
The news for Irving Oil.
Come on out, it's summer, having lots of fun. Come on out, it's summer, make your dreams come true. On the lake or by the shore, there's lots of things to do. Saying hi.
The annual convention of Irving Oil managers and supervisors. In the years since Casey Irving left the company, there have been a few changes.
Let's take a look at something that's not too hard to look at. This is our Irving girl for 1980, Sue Marshall. Sue, let's introduce you. Sue, would you like to say something?
Sure. I'd just like to say I'm proud to be Miss Irving for 1980. Looking forward to meeting you all this week.
That I feel great, that I am number one. Then I open up the door and say, look out, world, I'm coming out one more time.
Super salesman Joe Girard is imported from Detroit.
Do I have 3 people out there who will voluntarily come up here? Oh, God, I want to get up. Come on up.
He's here to spur the troops on to greater heights.
Remember what Dr. Norman Vincent Peale said? Fear! Fear is holding you down. You don't want somebody to see how dumb you are to do that.
Joe Girard holds the world's record for selling new cars, 1,425 in 1 year.
I asked for 3 and I got 5. When anybody walked into my office, they used to say no to me. You know what no means? No means maybe, and maybe means yes. Maybe if I come up, I can get a pin too. Well, you sure can. You will display faith every day of your life. Look at these people. Look at these people and yell to their faces the way you feel. I have to stay close to you, though. I feel good. Yes. I feel great. And I'm number 1. Yes, it is.
Only one man in New Brunswick would dare follow Joe Girard.
And I love getting up in the morning, and I love people, and I love to work. And no damn fooling about it. We have people, whether they're in St. John or in Halifax or Montreal or Sept-Îles or Baie-Comeau, or wherever it may be, they can learn if they're prepared to work. If they're prepared to work, we want them. If they're not prepared to work, we don't want them on our team. Let them go work for the federal government or the provincial government or someone else. Or preferably our competition, and they've got lots of them. Yeah. 95% of these people in this room here today come from the town where they were born. And they were that big a snowball, and today they're that big. They've got a reputation to earn, and once they earn it, they must keep it. And you don't do it by being smart-ass. You don't do it by telling fibs. There's no damn fooling about it. There's no secret to success other than work. And that's what my dad always told us boys. If you're prepared to work, he says, I'll help you. But if you're not prepared to work, then, well, let's discuss it. There's no darn...
The Irving philosophy is presented once again to each convention delegate in a glossy tribute to the founding father.